In today's show, we're looking at the Chicago Bulls. Entries for the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl as well. Lots of other stuff. Actually, not a lot of other stuff. It's all Chicago Bulls talk and some valuations of those players for fantasy. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com. And you can find me on Twitter, as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok, at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We are available on all platforms. So, we're here to talk Chicago Bulls. We're going to go through their players, the values and sleepers and busts. We're going to put Patrick Williams under the lens, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to enter the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl. Warning.
Let's get it on, Gilly.
A quick reminder again, the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl. It is category leagues and points leagues. You can enter one, both, whichever one, whatever you want to do. You designate that on an entry form. Entry form is linked below on the YouTube video and in the show notes. You can't fill it out yet because I'm going to give you a secret show-only question. You don't have to get every question right to get in, but we're going to have way too many entries for people, for spots that are available, so I've got to have some way to sort of differentiate things. But if you get the question wrong from the show, well, your chances of getting in are much lower. So fill that out, answer those questions. Sometimes there's weird discrepancies in answers. Most of the trivia questions that I get, the answers come from Basketball Reference, so sometimes they get one wrong, and I don't know how they do it, but they do. So just be aware of that. But drop those answers below. $50 entry fee. If you come top 2 in your division, you get $200 back. And then there's a big prize, which depending on how many teams we get in, might be $6,000, $7,000 for first place, with payouts to first, second, third of the overall prize winner. We're talking 18-man rosters, either 9-cat for category leagues or ESPN points format for points leagues. 40-game max per week. You can see all the details on the screen. I've talked about it at length, so I'm not going to go too much into it, but just stay tuned later on for the entry details in how to get into the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl. For the Chicago Bulls division, we'll have 2 different Bulls divisions, and I haven't named them Bulls division this year. I've named them after colleges or G League teams that are associated with the draft picks from this season. So the Bulls would have the Tennessee Volunteers associated with them because Julian Phillips, their draft pick, was from Tennessee. There's a Windy City Bulls division. And then on the points league side, it is the player that leads the team in Korea, the franchise in Korea VORP. So for the Bulls, you'd be in the Michael Jordan division in the points league. That's how that's going to work. All right, let's look at their schedule. The Bulls have 43 quality games. That's not a huge amount. It's on the lower end of where teams sit. We talked about the quality games, and the highest number is up at 55. The lowest number is down at 39. So the Bulls are towards the lower end that. These are all just little factors we take into consideration, not big determining things. The lower the quality games you have, the more your roster gets squished on big volume days, and that's where the Bulls are. They're in the middle for back-to-backs, 14 back-to-backs. The range is only 13 to 15. They have the lowest amount of maximum game weeks, which is, of course, a maximum game week is a week in which you play the most games out of any team in the NBA. Usually it's a 4-game week. And in the playoffs, they're okay. If you use my playoff schedule, ending on the 24th of March, it's 4-4-3. 1 game off max. If you finish 31st of March, it's 4-3-4. That is the max, 11 games. It's a 3-4-3 if you finish 7th of April, which is Yahoo default. And it's a 4-3-4 if you finish ESPN default the last day of the season. But you would only do that if you've got absolutely no idea how to set up a fantasy basketball league. And yes, I am deliberately talking to you if you decide to run your league in a head-to-head format to the last day of the season. In Roto, whatever, do it. It doesn't matter. Although you could end early. Head-to-head leagues, please don't do it. It's ridiculous. There's no need to do it. What are the pressure points for this team? The number one thing is if for some reason they have a Washington Wizards Ted Leonsis come to Jesus or come to common sense moment where they say, this team's actually bad. We're mid. We don't do anything. Can we actually do something to actually reboot this team? It seems unlikely with the Reinsdorfs in charge, some of the worst owners in professional sports. Will they ever make that decision? All they want, give me one playoff game. So they give me 2 playoff games and I'll, open my legs. Do whatever you need to do. That's all they want. It's a playoff game. Give me a little bit of money. Give me the money. That's all they want. I'm not spending it, but give it to me. That's how they operate. Will there ever be a change on this team? Probably not. Probably not. The 2 eras of success this team has had was A, Michael Jordan, B, lucking into Derrick Rose by getting insane lottery odds. That's the success this team has had. Not through unbelievably shrewd management. It's through that. That's it. So will they ever change direction and say, well, this mid-3 is never going to get us anywhere? Let's start to explore tearing it down Orlando Magic style, who already took advantage of the Bulls in one of those deals. The other pressure point, I guess, is what the hell happens at point guard? Is it Javon Carter, Alex Caruso, Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu? Is it all 4 of them? Who wins out? Because if someone like Kobe White wins out and gets the most minutes, then his usage is impacted or it might change other guys' values. If it's Alex Caruso or Ayo Dosunmu, well, they have no usage. That helps the other players. And if it's Javon Carter, it's somewhere in the middle. How do they run that? That impacts not only for those 4 players, but it impacts for the other guys surrounding them and how the minutes get distributed right across the board. Let's do it now. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Now, again, I'm not going to crow about my Miami Dolphins because their Week 2 matchup has not finished. And I hope we win, but I don't know that we will. I hope so. And then I can talk about how good Tua is and everything like that. But regardless of what your affiliation or how much you believe in Tua MVP, you can get those bonus bets and use them on future point spreads, on money lines, Monday Night Football, game totals, futures, player props. It's all there over on FanDuel. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. Let's talk breakout candidates. What do I mean by breakout candidates? Of course, when I do projections and try and give valuations, I try and give what is the most likely outcome scenario here. I can't go in and realistically or ethically, honestly, whatever word you want to use, I can't go in and say, well, I think Patrick Williams is going to average 20 and 8. He's going to get 2 steals a game. He's going to get 4 threes. He's going to be an all-star. Because honestly, I'd be insane. Is there a 5% chance of that? Probably not. Is there a 2% chance of that? Absolutely. Shit weird happens all the time. And I don't know why I said shit weird instead of weird shit. My brain is disconnecting talking about Patrick Williams averaging 20 points a game. But what this is guys, that when we look at their projections, they're not overly exciting. But when you take a squint, a murky squint, a real tight squint, an open-eyed look, whatever you want to say. I can't remember what my designations were. I think it was on the Hawk show where I did that. Yeah, there is upside here. And one of those guys is Pat Williams, who is one of the most insipidly low-usage players that we see in the NBA. Part of that is, again, the horrendous roster construction. When we look at the guys that play here, we're talking about LaVine, DeRozan, Vucevic, so Williams doesn't do anything. But there were times last season when he didn't really, like when DeRozan was injured with that thigh injury, he didn't do enough, I didn't think, to really step up and take the reins. Now, there were some games towards the end of the season. He has had some moments during the playoffs at times when he's been able to step it up and do a little bit better, but it's not always the case. But I'd love to see a little bit more from Patty, usage-wise, and it's year 4. It's got to start to happen, mate. He's young. He's missed basically all his second year. It's got to start to happen. Kobe White, another one who was a starter a few years ago, lost that job, They brought Lonzo Ball in, rightfully so. Lonzo got injured. They never went back to Kobe. They went to bloody Ayo Dosunmu in that role, and Kobe fitting with LaVine and DeRozan doesn't make a ton of sense. But last season, I thought he played really well. Towards the end of the season, the shot was great. He looked really good as a sixth man. If I was Chicago, DeRozan would be out of there, and I'd just start White and LaVine and see what the hell we can do here. Because he's got more upside than any of those point guards on this team. There's a pretty low chance of that, but if he continues with the trajectory of where he was, there isn't some upside breakout opportunity for Kobe. And I will say the same for Javon Carter, who started quite a few games for the Bucks last season with Drew out and Middleton out. Sort of slotted in there. He's turned himself into a pretty good three-point shooter, albeit low volume. He's a very good pesky on-ball defender. Could he be the closest thing the Bulls have had to a Lonzo Ball archetype? No, because Lonzo Ball is an elite transition player, an unbelievable passer, huge basketball IQ, ridiculous vision. Javon's none of those things. No offense to the bloke. Like, he's quite a good defender. He's very pesky. He's very hard-nosed. He's worked on his shot. He's not Lonzo in any respect. But again, if we do the squint on him, we go, okay, maybe. Like, defends a bit, worked on his shot a bit, can pass a bit, but nothing like the level of Lonzo. But if he is the starter and he plays 33 a night, there is real fantasy potential there for Javon. So I think Pat Williams, Kobe White, and Javon Carter all have some level of breakout upside to be able to turn into, didn't expect that to be a top 80 player. And we've got to always take that into consideration when doing drafts. Even if our projected stats, or mine or yours or another service or Yahoo's, by the way, someone, I think it was Max, who messaged me this and said, hey, bro, look at Yahoo's projected stats. Side note. Yahoo's projected stats. He goes, there's something off about him. Yes, there is. Because Anthony Simons is projected to average 30 points per game if he plays 82 games. Because they do the projections in totals, and his total was like 2,400 points, which is 29.8 points in 82 games. And if he played 72 games, it would mean he would be averaging 33 a game, which is very clearly not going to happen. It just has no chance of happening. Remember that, and there were other examples he gave as well. Remember that when you look into the projected standings on Yahoo, because they're the numbers that they are using. Stuff that doesn't make any sense. Now, some of the stuff will be okay and bang on. But when something like that's there, it makes me go, well, everything else, I can't trust any of it. Remember that. Let's put Pat Williams under the lens. A lot of these ones that we've done so far in the under the lens segments, there's been players with big improvements or declines, and Pat Williams is just straight, right. Nothing really changed for him. He was just he started most of the season. One thing that was in his favor is he started and then lost the job to Javonte Green, who started, I think, 2 games before his knee honestly ended his career because he's not signed anywhere. He's pretty good defender, Javonte Green. But Williams was that bad that he lost that starting spot. But look at that -1 weekly ranks. It's all just, it's not very good. And when someone is producing, and it's relatively consistent, but when you are consistently the 121st, 140th, 130th, 110th, 130th, 140th guy, you shouldn't care in a standard league. That does absolutely nothing really for you. It's that's not true. It is okay. You look at the Bulls with a 4-game week. Oh, maybe I'll get top 110 out of Pat, and I've got 3 guys injured, and he's my 10th guy, and there's a little bit of reliability there. That's not super encouraging. There is a small improvement as the season goes on. Again, I wouldn't say that it's awesome or anything like that, but there is a small improvement there, which is encouraging as we progress through the season. The numbers at the top aren't super great, though. 185th in Yahoo points leagues. This is all per game. 178th in ESPN points leagues. And in -1, which is my default head-to-head ranking, 161st. So not really a rosterable guy. Even when you look at those -1 ranks where there's some weeks where he was okay. But it's just a level of, can you ever actually blow up? Can you ever actually spike? Can you ever actually do anything that's good? And at this point, not really. Look at his field goal percentage. It's all okay. He had 1 or 2 bad weeks, but relatively consistent. No real improvements or declines. Just sort of sitting in a solid spot all the way through the season. Look at what Pat Williams did last season. His numbers, he played 28 minutes a night only. So number one, we look at, there is scope to go to 31 there with no Javonte Green on the roster. But I will say this, that they signed Torrey Craig, who it could very easily be argued at this point is better than Patrick Williams. Now, Williams is 22 and Craig is 30, I believe. I think Torrey Craig is 30. Like, I'd rather the 22-year-old get those minutes. Williams averaged 10 points, 1.5 threes, 4 rebounds, 1 assist. Like, that's the problem. You're playing power forward and you average 4 rebounds. So that must mean you're doing something else with the ball. No, 1.2 assists and 0.9 steals and 0.9 blocks. Now, 0.9 steals and 0.9 blocks could become 1.1 steals and 1.1 blocks in 32 minutes, which is really good. He shot 46 from the field. He's okay. 86 from the line, but on 1 attempt, that's putrid. He shot 42% from 3, another high percentage 3-point season, but really low volume. His usage was, we're going to talk about that in a second, 16%, very low. So just like a bunch of mid across the board. And yeah, you get a few really strong weeks with his field goals, but overall, nothing particularly exciting. Nothing particularly exciting. I did have a look, though, when talk about, and perhaps I'm unfair to him at times, saying he doesn't really ramp it up. He had a usage of 16%. In the 301 minutes that he played without DeRozan and without Vooch, he had a usage of 19%. If you throw it into the 100 minutes he played without any of the mid-3, he had a usage of 20%, getting better. If you throw him into the minutes to see what he did without Vooch and without LaVine, some of that with DeRozan, some of that without DeRozan, he had a, as I just try and find where his minutes are, he had a usage of 18%. So there are incremental improvements, but for him to actually get to even average usage of 20%, it was no LaVine, no DeRozan, and no Vooch. That's not ideal. It did get better at the end of the season, but there were periods during the year where he just, he didn't take over. Like, he's playing in these. If I have a look at the guys, like without those 3 players, as I screw up what I'm typing in over on the back end here, and have a look at the guys that were that on the court with him during that time, where he was only able to get to 20% usage without the mid-3. Yeah, there's Kobe White there, who's Dalen Terry in those minutes, Andre Drummond getting 36 usage, Goran Dragic getting 26 usage, Alex Caruso getting the same usage as Patrick Williams. Like, they're not ideal numbers. Dosunmu getting the same number. Like, he wasn't able to go, hey, let me try to establish myself. That didn't really happen, which is a bit frustrating. And then when you get it again, it's all the same story here with him. The usage per week, the usage rates 15, 17, 20, 17, 11, 16, 18, 16, 13, 15, 13. It's the same. There's a marginal improvement as the season goes on, but overall, it's really low. And when we talk fantasy points leagues, we know this. You need usage to translate into good fantasy points. It's important in categories as well, not quite as important, but nothing there really stands out. Even his shot blocking, which 0.9 per game as a power forward is not bad. There's some improvement as the season goes on. Yeah, we're getting 5 blocks a week, 4 blocks a week, 3, 3, 3, 2, 3. Like, they're okay. They're okay. They're better than average numbers, and there is a slight improvement in that. I think one of the things we just have to hope is, A, he becomes more aggressive offensively. B, he plays more than 28 minutes a night, and that translates into more blocks. And the fact that he's 22, he's in year 4, and we just see more confidence and more ability show from Pat. His Darko DPM change graph is impressive. What this is the slope of improvement from him. And he started off with a negative slope, so started his career, then it was not great. Had a little bit of a spike there at the end of year 1, missed most of year 2. And then last season, just consistent improvement, which is what we love to see in year 3. Can that change graph at least stay positive? Can he move his slope to a 0.04 instead of 0.02 to continue to get better? It is heading in the right direction, which is encouraging, but we're very far from it being awesome. The next graph was tough to figure out exactly what I wanted to look at with this. This is info from Basketball Index. I've got a bunch of players on that screen there, and on the y-axis we've got perimeter, isolation, defense percentile. So how good are you defending on the perimeter? One of his main roles. And the other one is how many times are you touching the game in percentile? And I compared him with a bunch of guys that I think are worthwhile analogs. Play the similar position with sort of crossover roles. One of them is Isaac Okoro, who's in the top left there, who's really, really strong in terms of perimeter isolation roles, but never touches the ball. He's better than Williams defensively, doesn't touch the ball offensively. Above him, directly above him there, is Jaden McDaniels, who is better defensively, actually one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA. Williams is not far behind in the top 90, or in the top 10% of players, close to the top 5%. And him and Jaden McDaniels touch the ball similar amounts. Now, you'd obviously much rather have Jaden, but there's a level of just get the ball a little bit more, Pat. Improve that defense a little bit more, and you're going to be valuable. The guy up there, Denny Avdia, a little bit better in terms of defense and a little bit better in terms of offensive touches. I think it's really interesting to see him touching the ball more and being close to an equivalent defender to McDaniels. You got Aaron Gordon, who's in a similar range as well in terms of touches and isolation defensive percentile. That's really encouraging, but we know that these guys aren't particularly strong fantasy guys. Then very much on the right-hand edge of the screen, down the bottom there is the Bronco Jalen Williams, and in the middle is Franz Wagner, who get way more touches but are worse defenders. And then down the bottom here is Tari Eason, who's a worse defender and gets worse or fewer touches. So the idea of this is to show that there are a bunch of players that Williams can improve to. He can never probably become Franz or even Jalen Williams, but can he work to become Aaron Gordon? Can he work to become Denny Avdia? Can he work to become... Could he work to become Jalen Williams with a bigger body? It shows that there's things there. He's not horrible in terms of touches. He's in like the 65th percentile of getting touches per game, meaning he's not 100% ignored. He just doesn't finish plays. He's very good defensively. That's going to keep him on the court. Turn those touches, which is the number of the touches that McDaniels gets, Aaron Gordon, similar numbers, marginally less than Jalen Williams, turn them into more shots. Get a few more minutes, get a few more shots. There are a few little things there that make me go, huh. Oh, as I turn the wrong screen off. As we go, huh. We're not that far away, I would say. Not that far away. Let's look at some fantasy sleepers now. I think that the skater boy, Zach LaVine, is probably a little bit low. It does depend, though. Now, you know I've got my new Durant ranking metric, which does downvalue him a little bit. But he's ranked at number 50 on Yahoo, 52 on ESPN for 9cat, 44 on ESPN for points. He's going at 52 on Yahoo, 46 on ESPN, 49 on Fantrax. The only one there I'd say is maybe that 46 for him as an ADP on ESPN's not super strong, especially for category leagues. But if I'm getting him in round 5, which I am according to most of this data, and especially for points leagues where he's a round 3 player, even that ESPN points rank at 44, I think gives you tremendous value. LaVine is just a guy where I'm not sure how much he blows up this season. I'm not sure if he does at all. But one thing that was very interesting with LaVine at the end of last season is the usage tilted towards him away from DeRozan. And they started to have more success. Was that Patrick Beverley arriving, or was it putting the ball in LaVine's hands more? I don't know. But it started to have more success. He averaged more points than DeRozan, 25 points. He gets 4 rebounds, 4 assists. The defensive numbers are never going to be great. He shot 85 from the line on 5 attempts, 49 from the field on 18, which is actually pretty good. Can he get from 5.5 free throws to 7.5? Can he tweak that usage from 29 to 31? Can he get DeRozan's 5 assists and that becomes 5 to LaVine and 4 to DeRozan? I just think there's a little bit of something there. We had the knee injury at the start of last season with LaVine, which they said, we're going to have to manage him. I go, bloody hell, what's going on here? And then he missed like 2 games for the whole year. Played 77 games. That was one of the wildest things I've ever heard. Man, his knees are a real problem, man. We're going to have to manage it. All right, so he sat it back-to-back, and he sat a non-back-to-back, and you go, holy shit, what is happening? And then he never missed another game. He missed 5 games for the season, and 3 of them were rests in the first week or whatever it was. So that was pretty wild. Can we have faith in that? I don't know. He's had 2 knee surgeries, 1 ACL on that weird cleanup a year before. But I do think maybe not ESPN, that 46 ADP. I'm not sure if that's a great category league value, but I do think that it is. I do think that there is value that in points leagues and value for him in other spots. And then we go to Pat Williams, because everywhere that Williams is, they're saying he's undraftable or the last round pick. Ranked 161 on Yahoo, ADP of 150. Fantrax has got his ADP at 139. ESPN's at 140. ESPN's got him ranked at 158 for category and 184 for points leagues. The only thing I look at there is his rank on Yahoo points leagues 161. I'm not sure he's a great Yahoo points league guy. Like, it's an okay number, but it would require a pretty big change in usage for him to get there. Still like him as a last round pick, but I think that he beats most of these numbers by 20 to 30 spots. Because again, do we think A, no improvement, and B, 28 or fewer minutes? Because that would be the suggestion of what these ranks suggest. I had someone argue with me the other day, well, yeah, every smart fantasy drafter just uses last year's stats to do their drafting. Cool. That's 100% not true, but people actually do that, and they go, I'm only basing it off last year's stats. Let me tell you again, I told this guy, as a general rule, out of the top 150, 50 guys go out each year, 50 guys come in. There are decent changes. Stats change quite a bit. And those ranks all suggest that Patrick Williams is not changing at all. He's not playing more than 28 minutes. He's not improving shooting. He's not improving usage. He's not improving anything. Playmaking, nothing. Nothing is changing. And that might be the case. But I will take a chance on a 22-year-old who should be the starter heading into year 4. Definitely ahead of all of those spots where he currently resides. So what's your question for the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl? The question is, what is the Fantrax ADP for Zach LaVine? So when you see the question on the entry form, it'll say, what is the secret show question? Don't give me anything else apart from the number. 49. Just write 49 in that spot. That's all you need to write. The secret question is, what is currently on the 18th of September Zach LaVine's ADP on Fantrax? And the answer is 49. Let's talk fantasy busts. I know what you're going to say. Josh, why do you hate Nikola Vucevic?
It's Big Vucevic.
I don't. I don't. I just have absolutely no interest in drafting Vooch at these positions. But Josh, he was actually a top 10 player, 9 cat totals last year. Cool. Draft him in the first round then. Also, a quick reminder that he played 82 games last season. That is true. 73 the year before that, 70, 62 on Orlando. He has been healthier, but 82 doesn't mean anything for this season. It doesn't mean that he's going to stay healthy. Like everybody, he's a year older. But for him, he's 33 now. Things can go awry for players like Vooch. He took a relatively unprecedented step forward in efficiency. Not unprecedented, it happens all the time, but unexpected. Went from 47, look, his field goal percentage last 3 years. Before this one, 47.7, 47.7, 47.3, 52. Free throws, 78, 84, 76, 84. So, do you have any confidence in 52 and 84 sticking? I don't. Not at all. He blocked 0.7 shots a game. He blocked 0.3 shots per game over the final 16 games. He averaged 17 and 11, but was under 10 rebounds per game over the final month, where he played only 32 minutes. He went from 18 and 11... actually not true. His numbers basically stayed the same. 17.6 and 11 to 17.6. Actually, they stayed exactly the same. How is that great? How did that happen? His rebounds and assists, identical. What? Okay, now I've lost my mind. His points, rebounds, and assists, identical. He hit 0.1 threes, different. And that all happened, this is the key, by improving efficiency that much. His true shooting went from 53 to 59 and yet put up exactly the same numbers. So if the usage and the role stays lower and the health disappears, he's not doing 17 and 11 again. So I've got him way down because I don't project him to be the exact same efficiency player. He's never been a big shot blocker and he's older. Will he get back to 1 a game? I doubt it. His last 3 seasons, 0.8, 0.7, 1, and then 0.7 again. That's more likely. He doesn't get to the line. I just look at all these numbers and they'll just look at him like ranked 36th on Yahoo, 34 ADP, Fantrax ADP 39, ESPN 9-cat rank 49. ESPN ADP 43. And I go, you're just banking on him being like he was last season and staying healthy, which I don't think you should. The other factor is that Durant, in terms of trying to work out the valuation of actual categories, drops him way down. Drops him to like 80. You go, oh, that's bad. Like, I'm not taking him in round 3 for that. Just not interested. And the same goes with DeRozan. Now, DeRozan in some spots is okay. He's ranked 9-cat for, Yahoo rank is 44, which for points leagues, totally good. I wouldn't want him in category leagues there. His ADP's at 48, and I actually think that's all right. It's an average, obviously. That's what A stands for. It's an average. So if he goes into 52, 53, I'll take him. But if he's at 44, 45, I probably won't. Like a round difference. I probably wouldn't do that with DeRozan. But on ESPN, he's just insanely high. 26 for ESPN points is his ranking. 39 for categories, and 29 is his ADP. That is an absolute burning of a draft pick, I think. Like Vooch, the Durant metric drops him down somewhat. He's still better in points than he is categories, but taking him round 3, early round 3, is an absolute losing proposition. He is old. What is he, 34? He's on an expiring contract. Could they trade him? Could they focus more on LaVine? Could he finally had some issues with his leg last season? I don't know. My issue with DeRozan as a player as well is that he can put up very good numbers, but having him on your team means you have to tailor everything around him, and that leads you to be mid. You can't actually be good while tailoring things around him. That's always my problem with him. And at some point, I think teams will realize that, like Toronto did. And I'm not sure Chicago does, but still, you're going into round 4, round 3 for DeRozan is just, it's not good. And I'm not interested in it. But yeah, take him in round 5. Okay. Totally okay. What are the injuries like? They're bad. That's not bad. There's one guy that's injured heading into the season. That's Lonzo Ball, and he's not going to play. Lonzo Ball is great. I love him as a player. Maybe he's able to come back. I wouldn't put any stock in it at all. I'd be very, very skeptical about, in a dynasty league, you might be able to get him for nothing. Sure, you got to sit on a 0 here. And if he does play, look, he legitimately has top 50 fantasy upside. It just feels like it's so far away. He hasn't played since January 2021, I believe, or 2022 was it? 2022, and he's not going to play again till October 2024. It's a long time out of the game. Who could they trade? If I was them, I'd be trading DeRozan. Final year of his contract, he's age 34. You can't actually extend him. Like you can't build a strong team around him, I don't think. It's just too hard with his defensive issues. The fact that he's got to play basically at the 4, a lot at the 3. He doesn't shoot threes. He takes the ball out of the hands of other guys because him off ball doesn't really work that well. And he's made a lot of strides in his game to become a better passer and all that sort of stuff. But it's just not enough to lead you to be a good team. If they do trade him away, they need shooting because they're one of the worst teams in terms of shooting and, more importantly, volume of shooting. They need someone to shoot. And they also need more forwards because their forward depth is him, who's a converted shooting guard, and Patrick Williams. Now, they did address it slightly by bringing in Torrey Craig and drafting Julian Phillips, but that's not it, is it? That's not the answer to anyone's problems. Players in a contract year, DeRozan's an unrestricted free agent. Williams is a restricted free agent. I doubt he gets an extension before the season. And the big avocado, Andre Drummond, is also an unrestricted free agent after he opted into his almost minimum contract. What are the risks in the rotations? Does Bill Donovan, who is, I think, an overrated coach, does he have faith in Williams? Because he didn't. He played him out of necessity last season, and now he does have someone who, honestly, is probably better right now. I would hope that on opening night he isn't in Torrey Craig, but I'd say he's better than Patrick Williams right now. So if Donovan just doesn't like what Williams is doing, look, maybe they split minutes and Williams doesn't get more than 28. It's possible. The risks is the point guard. Do they play all 4 of them? Dosunmu, Caruso, who's not really a point guard, but he get minutes there. White, Carter? Or does one guy get the 33 minutes and someone gets the 17 and 2 of them don't play? Don't know. And then Caruso's health. Because if Caruso could stay healthy, he is... This is hyperbolic, but is he a top 5 non-big defender in the NBA? Top 10? He's got to be close to it. But the way that he plays, he can't stay healthy and he can't play big minutes. But if he is healthy, they could give him 30 minutes. And then he would be interesting for fantasy and hurt a lot of other guys. But that is a thing. And if he gets hurt, then Dosunmu and Carter and White and all their value jump up because Caruso was out there, putting his nuts out there, and then got hurt and missed the next 10, 15. It changes things a lot. There's only one guy who I really look at in this team and go, well, if, now Caruso's sort of in that boat, but if this guy was to play big minutes, we'd love it for fantasy, and that is Andre Drummond. Now, Andre Drummond has had a wild career. Underrated early for Detroit. Started playing some big minutes, started developing as a passer. Oh, what's going on here? Horrendous free throw shooter, put in the work, improved it, and then started to think that he was better than he was. And went to Cleveland and was running 27 usage, and Stan Van Gundy was making him take post-up shots when he was never good at it. So much of his career, not ruined, but was impacted by that focus on him being this post-up offensive guy under Van Gundy when he should have been running pick and rolls, either as developing his passing or as a finisher. And that really hurt. Then he thought he was the best player in the world playing for Cleveland. Then he got humbled and was out of rotations everywhere. And now he's back here opting into minimum second years on his deal. But he is right. He is one of the best rebounders ever. He's not the best because Dennis Rodman exists, but he is one of the best ever. And if Vooch was to get hurt and Drummond would start, well, he would be an absolute automatic add everywhere. So if you are playing in something like the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl, where you've got 10 starters, 8 bench, and you've got an ability to stash guys, it's a great stash. Because all it takes is a week of Vooch out. He comes in, he's a top 100 player for a week, you put him back on the bench. That's the idea of stashing in those formats. But if you're playing a 10-3 split league, where you've got to use all 13 of your guys every week, well, he's going to play 14 minutes a night because him and Vooch aren't going to play together. Let's look at their depth chart. I think they're going to start one traditional guard, and that's Javon Carter. Behind him, it's going to be Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, South Sudan legend Carlick Jones, and Lonzo Ball, who's not going to play. I'm counting LaVine as a wing. I don't think they'll run many situations where he's the point, even though he'll handle the ball a lot. He can play next to 2 other guards, so you could see Carter and White next to LaVine. Carter and Dosunmu next to LaVine. That would work. White and Dosunmu next to LaVine, as LaVine plays at the 3, so I got him as a wing. I put Caruso as a wing, even though he might get some point guard minutes, but he's not really a point guard. He's more of a shooting guard, small forward, even power forward at times. Dalen Terry's a wing, who I also think is just really bad. And then there's Onuralp Batim, Turkish two-way legend. One of the weirder two-way signings. I think he's not bad as a shooter. We'll see what he's able to bring, but I don't expect that he plays very much. I think they're going to start 2 forwards in DeMar DeRozan and Patrick Williams, who DeRozan's going to get his minutes. Williams should, but might not. And then backups, there's Torrey Craig. The Red Rooster, Terry Taylor, is there. Remember him when he played those minutes for Indiana? He's not that good, but he's back on this team. Second round pick, Julian Phillips, who, much like Dalen Terry in the wing section, is a athletic-y sort of wing forward player who cannot shoot at all. His best position's probably going to be at the 4, but he's like a 3-4 combo. He's still very young, which is positive, but the shooting is a real rough thing. And then Justin Lewis, who was on this team last season as a 2-way guy, but Torrey's ACL didn't play. He's back. He's, again, a similar sort of forward type player. And then for the bigs, they're pretty rough on bigs, to be honest. There's Vooch, who we've spoken about already. There is the big avocado, Andre Drummond. And then this third center is 2-way player Adama Sanogo. Now, I think Sanogo should have been drafted. I think Sanogo should have been put onto a full-time contract. I think that if anything happens to Vooch or Drummond, Sanogo will play. And I think he will turn into, at the very least, a competent backup center. At best, the 25th best starter at some point in his career. I think there's a little bit in him. So while if I can shit on the Bulls a lot, and I do, and I will, them getting Sanogo in, I think, was very, very smart. Hopefully they're able to retain him, keep him onto a full-time contract, and he moves in, maybe replacing Drummond next season. He is an interesting guy who's currently their third-string center, and that would be one to watch because there's no other... You're not going to play Terry Taylor as that guy. There's no other depth there for the center spot. Let's look quickly at Durant and Bazemore as to what happens there. Durant, interestingly, really downgrades DeRozan. It downgrades LaVine a bit as well. Not that much, but it does downgrade him about a round. And it kills Vooch. It drops him about 4 rounds, which I thought was very interesting. So just when I take all those factors with Vooch, again, I'm not going to harp on this, but I do want to explain it. 82 games, I'm not banking on it. Does he maintain a 6 percentage point true shooting jump from last season? Because that's how he was able to maintain all of his value from the year before. Does he get blocks again? Probably not. He's older. Like, what else drops off? But Durant hates him. As for Bazemore, it's got Patrick Williams in the top 100. I'm interested in that. Kobe White inside the top 170. It does have LaVine outside the top 50, which again, because it's using a little bit of Durant in the back end. So Durant doesn't love LaVine. He's there. Desumu's outside the top 250, and DeRozan's outside the top 125 for my dynasty rank. But of course, when that does get released, there'll be a tweaking element to it where you can change for rebuilding and contending. And that will do it for my discussion on the old Chicago Bulls. Don't forget, get your entry in for the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl. The entry is in the description. It's in the show notes as well. Follow this podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and on the Odyssey app. Tell me how much I hate DeRozan, how I hate the Bulls, and I hate LaVine, and I hate Vooch, and I hate all these blokes. Tell me. I know. I hate them. They're all terrible, and the Bulls franchise sucks, and I've got it in for you, definitely. We're done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.
It's Vucevic. It's Big Vucevic.